Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk to you about Extreme Alliance Battle Combat Hero Day. Now, we've already talked about both the Universal Hero Day and the No Restriction Day. As far as the Combat Hero Day goes, again, there is a best in slot character, or I believe there is at least a preferred character for most of the players and top alliances that try to score high on this day. However, there are a few alternatives that you can look towards if you don't have this particular character. But first we're going to get into the build, and then we're going to get into some actual gameplay. So who am I talking about for the preferred best in slot character? Of course, it's got to be Moon Knight. Moon Knight is the current best character for the Combat Hero Extreme Alliance Battle Day because of his iframes. Iframes are the best possible type of attack for Extreme Alliance Battle, especially if they're high DPS or high AoE type iframes, because when you're in an iframe you cannot be hit, which is great, you can't take any damage, but also the dodge meter will continue to fill up, that meteor dodge meter that will improve your score. So the more you can cycle through iframes with a character that's heavy on them, like Moon Knight, the more you can build up that meter. And so because there are no, thank you for the Dimension Rift, because there are no other heroes in the combat slot, at least right now, who have as many iframes or who do as much burst damage as Moon Knight, he becomes the man to beat for that. Recently, Tier 2 Black Panther has seemed or looks like he is able to probably crack about 100,000 if you have him Tier 2, if you have decent cards and you know how to play. He does have one long iframe on his 4th skill, and he does have a shorter iframe on his 3rd skill, but he does still pale in comparison to our Batman lookalike, because Moon Knight just has more AoE than Black Panther, and he's got more and faster cooldown iframes that he can cycle through very readily. So what is the absolute best team for Moon Knight? Well, if you notice, this is a Combat Hero Day, so you're going to see the familiar faces of Tier 2 Werewolf and She-Hulk. This is the exact same composition as the No Restriction Day, except instead of Moon Knight, we sub in Doctor Strange. However, we can't do that in this case, so we go with our next best bet, who is our Honey Badger himself. So Moon Knight with She-Hulk's leadership is going to do additional damage, and then Werewolf's passive Tier 2 buff and the Wolf Instinct badge, which I guess is useful in a small way. Thank you for the Dimension Rift, NG. Those two bonuses are going to crank out Moon Knight's damage as much as possible. Unlike Doctor Strange, you can pass Werewolf's buff over to Moon Knight. However, you shouldn't do it more than once at the very beginning of the fight, because it just takes too long switching back and forth and waiting for the 10-second cooldown of the switch to occur, and that just kills your DPS, kills your momentum and your dodging. So I strongly discourage you from doing it more than once, but you can do it once at the beginning for some cheeky damage. If you don't have Tier 2 Moon Knight, you can try with Tier 1 Moon Knight, but you're going to have a lot of issues because he doesn't have the self-heal, so you're going to need to play perfectly. If you don't have Moon Knight, I think the next best bet is probably Shang-Chi. He does respectable damage. Thank you for the Dimension Rift. He can buff himself, and he has immunity on his 5th skill, and his Tier 2 makes his damage even stronger. But I think Shang-Chi pales in comparison to Moon Knight because he doesn't have those reliable iframes. As well, you can try someone like Iron Fist, simply because he does so much damage with his 4th skill, the Iron Fist, I believe it's called. That one just clears out mobs in a hurry, but again, no iframes, so really lacking that potential to get a massive score with all the meteors that are going to hit you instead of you dodging them, or avoiding them with iframes, because if you dodge them or if you get hit, your score will reset, or at least the bar will reset. As well, if you don't have Moon Knight and you don't have Iron Fist and you don't have Shang-Chi, I think Black Panther, as far as the videos and the confirmations we've got from players who have tried, I have not, but at least at Tier 2 he can give a respectable score somewhere north of 50,000, probably approaching 100,000, maybe on a good day, maybe 110. That's still not approaching nearly as much as you can get with Moon Knight. You can get upwards of 140, 150,000 score with Moon Knight Tier 2 with this specific setup, so this is what you should be aiming for. Now, as far as gears, as I've said before, you don't need to worry about gearing She-Hulk, you don't need to worry about gearing Werewolf, you just need to have She-Hulk's Mastery, and you need to have Werewolf's Tier 2 for that passive crit damage and crit rate buff. As far as Moon Knight, who's going to be your main source of DPS, you want to have all attack or physical attack on the first gear. You want to have all defense on the second gear. You want to have HP on the third gear. And then, as I always say, this fourth gear should be tailored to what you need the most. You definitely want 36% cooldown on this details page so that Moon Knight can cycle through his iframes as comfortably as possible. You then want to go for ignore dodge 50%, or excuse me, ignore defense 50%. That will be the same as defense penetration, just you know, the same beast by a different name. And then if you have both of those things, you're doing great. Pat on the back, E-pat, we should say. Vape up, boys. You should go for either crit damage or attack speed. I like crit damage because my attack speed on Moon Knight is actually not bad. He has a 12% buff there. Usually it's 0% buff, but I can crank up his critical damage a little bit higher. He's almost at 155 right now, which is nice. And when he gets that buff from Werewolf, he just does, you know, or Warwolf, I should say, he just does insane damage. The ASMR video, by the way, guys, if you're wondering when I'm going to release the mispronunciations of Future Fight ASMR video, it'll be coming in February 2017, so look out for that. As far as the obelisk, guys, for this particular mode, for Combat Hero Extreme Alliance Battle, you absolutely need to have snare resist on an obelisk. I was lucky enough here to roll it as a secondary stat, but some people think that it's wiser to start with a snare resist obelisk that has it as the orange stat, and then go from there, rolling something up that hopefully has a combination of a damage proc and either defense penetration or recovery rate or crit or crit damage, depending on what you need. I don't have another obelisk to show you what I mean, but basically the orange stat on some other obelisks would start as snare resist, and then you try to build it up from there. I got lucky with this one with defense penetration and damage proc. I'm very, very happy with it. But if you already have max defense penetration, then prioritize something like crit damage, or if you want immune to guard break for Moon Knight, although his animations are pretty snappy even with a low attack speed. And then if you really want more HP from his tier 2 passive, the Moon Force, then you can give him some recovery rate. But you absolutely must 100% have snare resist. Without snare resist, you're going to have a horrible time playing Combat Hero Extreme Alliance Battle. You're going to want to pull out your hair, as I have done in the past, and your score will suffer greatly. With a snare resist obelisk, I can comfortably hit about 120,000 just casually playing. Without the snare obelisk, and even with a damage proc obelisk, so I had a damage proc obelisk, but it didn't have snare resist, I was hitting around 60,000. Because every time the Frost Beast touches you, you're snared for 2 or 3 seconds. I would die sometimes from just having like 4 or 5 meteors hit me in a row while I was snared. The snare lasts 3 seconds. It's super painful, and it's just a horrible way to play. It's honestly masochistic. I do not recommend it. So please, for the love of God, get a snare resist obelisk for your combat hero, and then hopefully you get a damage proc as well. As far as the skills go for Moon Knight, you want to at least max out Lunar Eclipse, because that's where most of his damage comes from, but you don't necessarily have to. Level 3 is not bad. All of his other skills you don't really have to max out. I just have them there sitting at level 3. For his ISO, because Moon Knight has the passive heal on tier 2, you do not need a defensive set at all. You want to go full throttle attack. You either want to go with, again, Hawk's Eye, Overdrive, or Power of Angry Hulk, depending on whether you need attack speed, defense penetration, or cooldown, and then if you need crit damage on the other slot. So those are the setups for Moon Knight, and of course if you don't have his uniform, you should probably invest in it. On top of the 10% stat gain that he gets, his crescent dart animation changes, the number of projectiles increases, which does augment the damage a little bit, but more importantly it becomes an instant iframe, which is super useful for dodging blasts from the Frost Beast, roars, lunges, and generally being able to control the Frost Beast and interrupt him more. So I strongly recommend the uniform. As for the gameplay, we're going to check it out here now. The strategy is very similar to a lot of the other days. You want to cycle through your strongest skills, and you want to try and time your strongest skill, in this case the 5th skill. You want to try and time it with your obelisk procking for the increased damage. When you see that activate special gear notification in light blue on your screen, you want that to coincide with when you're pressing the button for the 5th skill. We're gonna let the mobs zone in here. We do have a snare resist obelisk on Werewolf as well, so he's not going to get snared. We're going to wait until the evasion meter builds up. We're going to wait till we see a meteor, then we're going to move out of the way, cast the buff, switch, and then we're going to come in with the 5th skill. We want to hug the Frost Beast so that we get him as well as the mobs in the Cone of the Blast. And then we just want to do our best dancing effects here to get out of the way of the meteors while simultaneously doing damage to the Frost Beast. Just like Doctor Strange, you don't want to target the mobs. I mean, you can here in this situation, but otherwise you want to group them up together so you can deal damage to the Frost Beast while simultaneously dealing damage to the mobs by proxy. Now, I don't have any recovery rate on my Moon Knight, so this becomes pretty dangerous basically in the second half of the fight, because he can take massive damage in a hurry, especially from meteors, and I only gain about 7,000 health back from a trigger of my tier 2 passive, so I don't get a lot back. See, this is not a very good position to be in because the mobs spawned very far away from the Frost Beast, so I was actually DPSing the mobs without the Frost Beast. That's not really what you want to do. As far as a skill, I'm not sure what the Frost Beast is doing. As far as a skill rotation goes for this fight, you want to open up with the 5th skill, preferably from behind. I like to rotate into the 2 and then rotate into the 4, but you can use the 4 evasively because after the initial pull, you can see here he darts to one side, and you can actually use that strategically to dodge incoming meteors. But you just need to make sure that you're hugging the Frost Beast as much as possible, and if you don't have a snare resist obelisk for whatever reason and you want to punish yourself, then what you want to try and do is time the Frost Beast's lunge and attacks on you with see, I whiffed that attack, so that was not really good. But you want to time your attacks, specifically your iframe skills, with the Frost Beast's lunges. So there I just lost Moon Knight. That's pretty bad. I got a little distracted while I was talking, so that this score is going to suck. But at the time, I believe I was doing pretty well. I was probably on pace for about at least 120. I'm going to do it again here for you guys so you can see the final result of this, score for Moon Knight for this day. And we will see at the end just how much I can get with a full 3 minutes worth of the White Knight himself. So as you guys can see there, I got about 140,000 or very close to that. With a little bit of focus, I can probably push a little bit more, closer to 150,000 if I switch around a few of my Urus and do a little bit more tweaking with my final attack rotation or skill rotation for Moon Knight. But the general idea is to open with the 5th skill, align the proc of your obelisk with his 5th skill, and then use the 4th skill evasively for that shift. Use the 2nd skill, the crescent darts, for the instant iframe if you have the uniform. And then if you do have a little bit of space, you can try to use the staff slam, which does also trigger an iframe, although keep in mind it does have a bit of a wind up for it. It does have a delay, so you may get caught off guard by a swipe and get guard broken if you don't have an immunity obelisk, or you can get hit by a meteor and take some damage. So hopefully these tips have been helpful to improve your Combat Hero Extreme Alliance battle scores. And if you aren't working on Moon Knight right now, as of yet, this is the strongest reason too, because he is the best combat hero for this day. So I hope this has been enjoyable for you guys. I hope you liked seeing Moon Knight in action. And of course, guys, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.